Hello and welcome to Learning Excel 2013. My name is Mike Henry and this is the 6th video from Tutorial 7. In this video we're going to learn about macros. We're going to go through the steps of putting up the Developer tab all the way through creating the macro, creating buttons to run the macro off of, and then saving. So this will be a very important video for you and a little bit longer. So now it's the time we've all been waiting for. We're going to get to play with the macro. Basically what we're going to do is have this information here in the transfer area, which is coming from this information up here that was typed in, is going to be transferred over to this area here. And we're going to do that with the click of a button, and we're going to do that through a macro. Now the first thing that we need to do is we need to put a tab up here called Developer. And you can see that tab is missing now. And the way I put that up there is I click on File. I come down to my options right here. And then on my options you can see right here where it says Customize the ribbon. And right here you can see that the tabs on the ribbon, the only one that's not clicked right now is this one here called Developer. And when I click that and I hit OK, you can see I get the Developer tab. So this is a really important tab. This is where we're going to do our macro. Now in this case we're going to be recording our macro, or basically recording the steps that we go through. And if we think about this, we would write down or put down the steps that you need to do this macro. So basically when we look at this, we're going to be taking this information here and putting this information here. Now there's some steps that we need to do here. For one thing, we know that our sheets are protected. So step 1 is going to be to unprotect both of our sheets. And then step 2 is going to be to do a copy. Now if you look in here, you can see that many of these are actually cell references. They're not data. So we're going to need to copy these things as data, not copy them as the cell, because we would just end up with equal player name over there. The other thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to center ourselves and come down one time extra every time we enter something in. So we're going to have to use some relative references in there in what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to take us through the steps right now of how we're going to do this. So the first thing that we do is when we turn the macro on, you begin recording what you're going to be doing. So we're going to call this macro transfer data, and we're going to set it up so that when we hit Control T, it automatically will do that for us. And then you would want to put in a description of your macro. For right now I'm just going to hit OK. And so now the recorder's on. You can see where it says stop recording here. A lot of people suddenly get a lot of heart palpitations going. They think that they're being filmed. The only thing that's happening is anytime you click on something, then that step is recorded. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to the review and we're going to unprotect this sheet, and we're going to go to the registration data and we're going to unprotect that. So now I'm able to copy and paste in between. I'm going to scroll down to here and highlight this block of cells, because those are the cells I'm going to copy, and I'm going to come here to Home and I'm going to come here to Copy. So now I'm copying. You can see my little ants running around. I come to registration data, and now what I'm going to do is center myself. I don't know where I am on this sheet, and I'm not sure every time I will know where I am. So what I do is center myself, and one of the best ways to do that is I do Control Home. And so I just click that, and you can see I'm now back here in the home cell. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the keys to get to the bottom of where I am. So I'm going to do the end key, and you can see down here I just went into the end mode, and I hit the down arrow, which causes me to go to the bottom of the list. Now this is the bottom of the list. I could have 2 things in here, or I could have 500. I will always go to the bottom, and this is a very key step. I come in here and I use a relative reference, and I say go down 1 cell from where I am. So I hit the down arrow key once. Okay. Now I got my piece centered exactly where I want. I turn off my relative reference and I'm ready to paste. So I come down here. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that one, so we'll have an extra step in there. I hit home and I come to paste, and I am going to come down here and I am going to paste right here, paste just the values. I don't want to paste the information, I want just the values. And so you can see I get just the values that were in those cells, so I know that I'm where I want to be. And before I leave this one, I re-protect this sheet. So that sheet's been re-protected. I come back to the receipt. I'm going to do it a little differently than the book does. To me, naturally, you've done all this. You would want to highlight all of this and you'd hit the delete key, and then you'd recenter yourself for today's date to enter in the next one, and then you would protect this sheet. Now with yourself recentered, everything's protected. I would go and turn off my recorder. All right. So now let's see if this works. I'm going to put in a date here, so we'll put in today's date. Oh, that's not going to work. Let's put in a later date here. I need something from, we'll go 2009 because we have a validation rule in there. And we'll just put in a player here. Billy is going to be our player. He is going to be from the age group here, and his shirt size is going to be large, and he's going to have a sock size of large. He is in early registration, and his parents are Fred and Mary. So we've got his parents in there. I'm not going to put the rest of these in, but now you can see that this sheet has been building, and more importantly, this sheet built it all the way across. We have a 0 in here. This must be for the telephone. We didn't put a telephone in here, so we'll put a quick number in here, 207-775, and it'll be 1111. So now he has a telephone, and that's come across. Now to test our macro, I haven't put a button in yet. We'll test our macro using the control, and I will hit T. And you can see some things happen behind the scenes. This is all erased, and if I look over here, you can see Fred and Mary were put in place. So our macro worked. So a couple last things about macros. We just saw that we can run this with a control T, but we'd like to have a button on here that would make it easier for the end users. And we do have the ability to put a button on here. But you notice that my insert right now is dimmed out. And the reason it's dimmed out is because this worksheet's protected. So if I come back here and unprotect my worksheet, you'll notice that my little toolbox is ready, and I can click here and do an insert of a button. And I get the little tool. I'll draw a button right here, and it asks me which macro do you want me to run when I click on this button. So I only have one macro here. I put that in. And I don't want it to say button 8. I would rather have it say transfer data. So now I have a nice button that's going to work here. Now with my worksheet already set up the way I want it, I would go back and obviously protect that sheet because I want that sheet protected. Now another thing about macros I want you to see is right here we can list all of our macros. And you could actually click on this and edit a macro. So now as we're looking down here, this is called VB code. We could change this if you know VB code, but I am not teaching VB code. You're not responsible for learning it this semester. But this is VB code. If you know it, you could make some changes. And it's kind of easy to understand. Like here it says the range A40 to F40. We're going to select that range. And then we're going to take that selection and we're going to copy it. And then you can see a little ways down we're going to paste that range, and we had special paste options on here in that we were not going to take the cell formulas, we just wanted to paste the values. So you can see that it does make sense when you read it. I would highly recommend, if you don't know it, don't change those pieces. And now let's go ahead and test to make sure this works. I'll put in a date. Whoops, let me back that up so we don't have a problem. We'll put in Mary, and Mary can be in this age group here. She'll wear small and small, and her parent will be George. Now when I click the Transfer Data button, you can see that everything's gone and that Mary was transferred over. If you're seeing George and Mary in there twice, it's because I practiced this with a video thing and then I deleted it and I forgot to take these out. So it didn't put it in twice. It's just because of the video that I was creating. The last thing I want you to see with macros is that we need to save this spreadsheet differently. Right now you can see the spreadsheet's just a regular Excel. We're going to do a save as, and when we do a save as, I'm going to let this still go on the desktop. It's still going to be called soccer, but the type is no longer a workbook. It's going to be here a macro enabled workbook, and it's very important that you save it as a macro enabled workbook. If you do not, all the macro data gets cut off and they only save the spreadsheet, and that's very important. When we look at this here, you can see that on my desktop here I have soccer, and then I have soccer with an exclamation point. This is my macro enabled one, and I'm actually going to shut this down so you can see when it opens. When it opens up, you get this little security warning saying that the macros have been disabled, and if you want to enable them, you have to actually enable them. So make sure you save your macros properly. In this video we learned all about the macro. The first thing that we learned how to do is put up that developers tab. That's going to be very important. You will have to do that during the exam. We also learned how to create a macro by following through the steps. Lastly, we learned how to take that macro and put a button to it so we could run it off a button. And we learned how to save our worksheet as a macro enabled worksheet, because if we don't, we'll lose our macro, and that's really important on test night to make sure you get graded on your macro.